Welcome back. Glad to have you along tonight. 2012 gets closer each day. The Mayan calendar and 2012. What's the real story? Is it going to be an asteroid, a comet, the 12th planet perhaps? Is it nuclear war? Maybe a catastrophically deadly and virulent pandemic? Or massive climate change of some kind? Or is E.T. coming back to either eat us all up or take us all away? Or is it just the end of the Mayan stone calendar? Because the carver died, went on strike perhaps, or maybe he just ran out of stone and rock to decorate. That argument has been put forth as well. People, of course, have been predicting the end of this world of ours for, well, forever, with the appearance of each blazing comet, and after every eclipse or huge earthquake or tsunami, people say, well, the end is coming. If nothing else, 2012 is surely a golden opportunity for hustlers and opportunistic filmmakers, screenwriters, authors, radio and TV doomsday guests. You'll see it all in the next couple of years and probably get sick of it. Some people already are tired of it, me being one of them. In any case, it won't be too long until we find out what's going to happen. Nobody really knows, apparently. Or maybe someone does. You'll be able to perhaps decide that for yourselves after the next couple of hours. With us this evening is our friend, colleague, and pal, Clif, who called me a couple of weeks ago and in a rather stunning conversation told me that he had figured out most of it, and that what he figures is absolutely not good news. So let's welcome back Mr. HalfPastHuman.com and lay out this 7-course meal of what appears to be a very unpleasant 2012 forecast. Good evening, Pie Meister.
Hello, Jeff. No, and I didn't discover it all, or even most of it. All I've done was add a couple of nice little twists that validate somebody else's discovery.
Well, I didn't sleep for a couple nights. Thank you.
As I know, and I've been very upset I was rather intensely upset for that first week, because I love mathematics, and mathematics usually, has never lied to me, and I do strange things with mathematics that frequently place my life at risk, make domes out of very thin material that technically, mathematically, should support my weight, and then go it up and see, that kind of thing. So I like math, and when the math validated this Patrick Garrell's position on some stuff, and then I was able to add further reinforcement to his already pretty rigorous research, it made for some uncomfortable sleeping indeed.
This fellow, Patrick Gerl, Gerls, has been kind of beating the solar issue for quite some time. Now, you first became interested in his work how long ago approximately, and how much of it have you been able to go through, and what led you to your kind of taking it a step further, if you will?
Well, actually, I've only recently discovered his work here, just a couple of weeks ago, really. But some of the stuff that I'd been doing since 1997 that actually got me started on my current path was related to the sun and disease, and the two words in combination as though the sun were ill, showing up in our data sets way back in 1997 before I had a clue as to what I was looking at.
What were the two words again?
Sun disease.
Sun disease.
Right, and sun as in soul, not as in Stanford University network, for which I was hunting. And so, I abandoned my fleeting hope of riches and set about becoming a rather strange fellow out here, doing odd things with computers. But nonetheless, because I've had that in there so long, I've been intrigued by this, and then I ran into the work of Maurice Cottrell, who has done a lot of work in books that you can read, the Mayan prophecies and the Tutankhamun prophecies.
Oh, he's been on the program here. He pronounces it, as we both know, Morris, but
nonetheless, yes, yeah. He's free to pronounce it
any way he wants. But he's a very bright man, and sent me some material I haven't even told you about. I need to send this to you. I just remembered that just now. Anyway,
well,
go ahead.
I have all of his transparencies. And,
oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, and I've done the matching. My issue with his work is the same as Patrick's, that there's a number of significant faults in there and that Mr. Cottrell, I believe, is somewhat short-sighted, simply and is blinded by a religious perspective. And a quick example is that any time he runs across a two-dimensional representation of the Merkaba, which is the intertwined tetrahedrons that is really a symbol for hyperdimensional knowledge, he sees it as the Star of David, and he makes the assumption that, this refers to, Judaism, and Judaism shows up here, and thus this is all pointing back to, yet another visitation of another Christ figure, which is all well and good. However, if you just take it one step further and start looking at some of the other math that's encoded in there, as well as the Merkaba as an actual representation of a hyperdimensional object, you get a different view entirely, which leads you, unfortunately, to Patrick Garrell's set of assumptions and conclusions, which are rather nasty for us all in a very clear and present danger kind of a way.
Right. Tell us about who this Garrels is now. I've heard of him, and some of you.
And I never had. I found out that the fellow is a unschooled but highly educated individual, and so I like him. I'm that same way myself.
Yeah.
And his vision is not tainted by any kind of academic leaning. He had made some rather staggering observations around the relativity theory, which turns out to be true. I went and actually ran across him because a German friend of mine sent me an interview of his that he'd done in German. And I listened to it, and I was very intrigued, so I tracked him down and found out he even has some interviews in English, and he's written some books in English, which are quite staggering. And then I go on in and find out that he is also basing his work on Cottrell's findings that take you up to a certain point. And within that work, there's some very specific, cannot be mistaken mathematic clues. And if anybody really wants to doubt it, they can go and read both Cottrell's Mayan prophecy and then Garrell's work, and you find that these very specific kinds of numbers used and found within the Mayan codices everywhere, and also within Egyptian constructions as well as actual hieroglyphs, all point to a certain set of conclusions that are basically unmistakable in terms of if you've ever seen the math before. And you need to get into specifics to understand it, and I get at that point in a little bit. But basically, here's the reason I was so interested in all of this. It's pretty evident now that the whole solar system is involved in some kind of giant upheaval that here on Earth they're trying to sell as global warming, and that basically all of the planets are involved in some form of climate crises, if you will. We needn't label it any further than that. Since all the planets are involved, and we know there's not, or at least we suspect there aren't SUVs trucking around on all the other planets, we know it's not humans that's causing it. Our theories had matured over time here because there were more and more words showing up within our data going to the idea of magnetics that had gone bad or gone wonky. And so I came up with the label, the big squeeze, which led to a postulate that there was some form of external energy that was causing this big squeeze effect. And that's always been rather troubling because in order to postulate the external energy, you want to have evidence for it. It's not intellectually honest unless you have some reason for thinking that that energy is going to exist. And there are a number of reasons to think that. The alignment of the Earth through the Sun to the dark rift in the galactic center is going to occur in 2012. Whether that's pertinent or not anymore is probably no longer really the case. We need not postulate, after reading Garrell's stuff, we need his theories as to how all this goes together based on what the Mayans and the Egyptians have encoded in their history that they wanted us to find. It's no longer necessary to postulate an external to the solar system cause for any of this.
So internal to the solar system, not a galactic wave or anything like that.
It could be indeed that those such things are going to occur and are likely to occur and
as
can
well.
Occur, but they needn't be involved at all in what we're facing in 2012
Gotcha.
And what we've had happen to us 3 times over the last 40,000 years. Something else that's evident, if anybody's ever looked at humanity, is that we're a species that is suffering from a huge amount of amnesia. That, we could not be where we are now if our species had only matured and existed as, near ape descendants 40,000 years ago.
Right.
Hogwash. Plus, there's out-of-place artifacts that show modern Homo sapiens sapiens that are 8 million years old that could not have been found in any other way except placed there 8 million years ago, this kind of thing.
Prodigious numbers of them all over the place.
So there's just no point in going into details, and anybody who wants to can read Graham Hancock and some of these other people who just will give you volumes of information and just stun you with the sheer amount of evidence.
Well, Michael Cremo's Hidden History of the Human Race is...
The evolution, yeah.
Of course. Stand by. We'll be right back with Clif High as we continue our most fascinating 2 hours. So stay right with us. And we continue our conversation with Mr. High of HalfPastHuman.com. If you reload Rense.com and look in the guests section, under Clif's name, you'll see special material and images for tonight's conversation. You're welcome to wade in. We're going to be working through that as we continue. And just for fun, I entered 2012, just 4 little digits, in the Google search engine. 392 million returns. And growing every minute.
A curious meme, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right,
go ahead. Unlike any other Millennial Madness episodes in the past, going back as far as 999 crossing into 1,000, we had some strange things there, but it all faded by this time, so it's quite odd. Probably it makes sense to just step through the idea of the theory, the sunspot cycle, and then say why it's important in a separate little bit. Okay, so basically here's the idea. The sun rotates at multiple different speeds. As far as we're concerned, the ones we care about are the polar speeds versus the equatorial speed. And there is a difference because while the sun has 99% of the mass in the solar system and is the giant big guy, it only has 1% of the angular momentum, which is to say the centrifugal force, the whirling around effect. And the planets, while they only have 1% of the mass, have 99% of the angular momentum. Since they whirl around at the equatorial plane of the sun,